So, yes, I had another thought. And this one was very random. I had an idea to do like something else. I was gonna do maybe, because I was having a conversation with someone, a group of people actually, and someone brought up this idea of like, what was it? It was compartmentalization, and I was like, yeah, like dissociation, but like they said like, no, I compartmentalize, and I was like, when I hear compartmentalize, I think of dissociation. So I was gonna get into that thought, but I had another thought, and I'm like, ooh, yeah, I feel like that is more, something I should do for this video. Felt more like resonant, and then I felt like it was like, yeah, I should do this. So I woke up maybe like the past week on my bed, and I was like, I don't even know how I got there, but it was, first I was like, okay, I guess to paint the picture, I have been, in a PhD program, that I moved really, really far away from, like, my home for. So originally I'm, like, from NYC, in the Bronx, and lived there for most of my life, and then I went to school, like, in Pennsylvania, and yeah, so I guess most of my life was like in the East Coast, and so like moving from like the East Coast to like, this new area of like the US was just interesting, to say the least. But yeah, I was like really excited for this program, because I really saw myself here. I initially, like, the field that I applied for it's a pretty new field. There aren't many programs in that field, and so like there's just the pathway into which I even heard about it, and I was like very passionate. I was like, yeah, this feels like, given my past experience, it just makes sense, and like my outlook, it just makes sense for me. So I was really excited about it, but like my experience, like within, I would say for most of the 2 years that I was here, it was very rocky, for many reasons, but I think, to succinctly put it, I think it's just the social reality that I was just dropped into was very difficult, very difficult. And maybe I'll get more into that, later on, but yeah, it was tough. And I think I was also just special circumstances in with which, I was brought into the program. And so just looking back at the 2 years, because like I'm no longer like a part of that program, right? I made a decision that initially not to discontinue, because I just wanted to try to find like a different avenue with which I could still like complete the goal of like getting the PhD and like the experience that comes with that. So like obviously like creating, these studies for your dissertation and like actually writing it and defending it, like that's really what I was interested in doing, that I really wanted to have completed, but ultimately that's not what's gonna happen, at least not now. But what was I saying before this? yeah, I made a decision, because of, some things that were happening, to kind of find like a different way, like an alternative way to still continue in the program, and with the way that I felt was still honoring the wholeness of my soul, let me say it like that. And unfortunately, there wasn't an outcome that could, honor that. due to like, like funding is also like in there during these times. So yeah, it was not expected. Like, I didn't join this program expecting this, of course. But I was just thinking, like, yeah, I would totally make that decision again. Right? Even though, like, it has meant that I'm not achieving my goal in the manner that I thought I was going to achieve it. And it's not allowing me to, it's not leading me down a path that is relatively straightforward that I planned for. But I feel like that's very much life. So I guess at this point I'm just like, yeah. But I was just thinking about how much peace that I have. And it really wasn't until, because even like, I made the decision like last December, right? I really just put it into motion last December. And so there was, very disappointing reactions to that decision, that I still had to like deal with like that backlash all up until like February, kind of like thinking and looking into like, okay, like what are the avenues that I have for, rectifying like the damage, the unjust, what's the word? Maybe undo damage that came with that reaction to my decision. And it really took a minute. It wasn't until maybe like, I would say March up until like now that, things, I didn't really have to deal directly with that. And there are just things that you can't control that, other people decide to do that you kind of just have to navigate around. So yeah, that was that. But just going into the summer and like the spring and like finishing the semester and having really just engage with coursework that like I kind of like chose myself, and really just had such a significant impact on my identity as a scholar, and like helped in my mind just pave the next steps of like where I want to continue as a scholar. And like just now just being able to, kind of like delve deeper into like the works that I need to be able to contribute to like the work that I would want to do. I just felt so like thankful and grateful and happy and like whole. Yeah, and I think that's a feeling that I really did not have in my first 2 years here. And it was crazy because I woke up, because mind you, like these past few months, you would like I've just been in such joy that I don't think I remembered how difficult like the past year and a half was. So I woke up and I was like, oh no, like this and this and this happened. Like, like it wasn't like an easy time. And just looking back at the journey, I was just like, yeah, I'd make that decision again. I'd probably, having gone through it, maybe do it in a way where I had more protections, so maybe to the point where I would be protected against, a lot of the things that did happen. But I would still make the decision. And so that brought me to, like, in my head, I don't even know, like, I don't really know the connection or how that happened, but I was just like, it brought me to like this idea of self-preservation. because I felt like throughout my time here, I felt like I was kind of like seeing manifestations of self-preservation, and people would kind of like say self-preservation in a lot of like different contexts. And so it felt like it was all melding together, and then it reminded me of, like in the Bible, I think it's like, I think it's in the Gospels, so it's in all the Gospels, but like it's specifically in Matthew's version. I think it's like Matthew 10, where it's like, oh my god, I'm forgetting. Like whoever like saves their life, like loses it, and like whoever loses their life, like for my sake, this is Jesus saying it, for my sake, basically gains it. And then I think in one of the versions, that might be the Matthew 16 one, I don't know, one of those, 10 or 16, okay, and where he's like, and what good is it to lose your soul but to gain the whole world? And I swear, like something just like, like when things start connecting, but it's not like for me, I think I understood that text in like a very specific context, but I think sometimes when you go through things, like it's like an embodied knowing, kind of like not in the head, it was like, yeah, X plus Y equals this, but like it's like very active, including like the whole body, where it's like, oh, my body, like literally, like I was like, oh, like it just like there was a relaxation, but also like an like I feel like there's another dimension of like understanding has been opened, and in the sense, it very much, I think that's what led me to like self-preservation, because I think so I was talking to someone else in my program, and I was like, yeah, because there were people that I had lovely conversations with that I just really enjoyed, and I was like, I feel like we should share these with people because these are important conversations. Like sometimes we talk about, fighting within and outside our system, and like I remember it was like Wicked Part 1 had to come out. And like there was like the whole talk for like Glinda and Elphaba, and that led to like fighting inside and outside systems. And then there was like a whole like I brought up like code chaos, and like it was fun. It was a fun time. And so I was like asking people, I'm like, yeah, like I'm gonna do like this podcast, and like y'all should like talk. We should like have our conversations on there because I think they're good. They're like good food for thought. And this one dude was like, no. And I didn't even specify what like this podcast was gonna be, right? But he was like, yeah. And I was like, why? And he was like, self-preservation. I'm like, huh? Mind you, this is someone who graduated his PhD. Like, it's not like you're a PhD student. Like, PhD students are like at the bottom of this academic ranking. Like, no one cares about us. Like, you have your PhD and you're teaching, like, you know what I mean? Like, and it was just so interesting to me because it feels like, and I didn't say this is going to be like an inflammatory like podcast or anything. It's just like conversation. So obviously you can bring your own conversation that you're comfortable talking about and whatnot. But like, I thought it was just so interesting that the first idea that was jumped to was self-preservation, as if like it had to be something that was inflammatory. But also, what is inflammatory is talking about things that we should be talking about. Inflammatory is I don't know, addressing injustices that you've seen throughout your time, sharing your experience. That's in fact like that. Why? I don't know. And I think I've had that thought in that moment a lot of my times here, because I think a lot of the people I've talked to, I think their goal is in some way to make the academy and the spaces that they're in to create positive social change. So I guess I'm always like a little like, how are you going to make that positive social change if you're not sometimes pushing against the status quo and like doing things that are uncomfortable, and that, yes, are there's a risk associated with it, you know. And obviously, like the higher you are in the ranks, like the less the risk is. But I think sometimes, yeah, it's just, I think what it is, okay, what I'm trying to say is self-preservation, right? If I look up a definition, let me look up a definition. Oh my god, I should have had this ready before. I'm so sorry, guys. Self-preservation. Definition. Okay, right off the bat, or should I do the AI review? No. Okay, let's go to Merriam-Webster. It says, oh, that's awful. I'm sorry, I just saw the definition used, the word in the definition. The first one is like preservation of oneself from destruction or harm, okay? And the second one is a natural or instinctive tendency to act so as to preserve one's own existence. Let me see if I can find some more. Oh, okay. I like this, the Cambridge Dictionary one. Behavior based on the characteristics or feelings that warn people or animals to protect themselves from difficulties or dangers. I feel like that's more comprehensive. Yeah, like there's a wisdom to self-preservation. Like I'm not gonna say there's not. And I think a lot of the times we misapply that wisdom. And I think what is truly coming in is like there's a fear associated with that, right? Like you're fearing the consequences, you're fearing the difficulty. Like your fear is telling you, if you do this, this and this and this might happen. And sometimes you have to listen to that fear, right? Like that sometimes you have to know when to not push, and you have to know when, okay, no, I need to push. And sometimes that fear is just information preparing you to just take on the battle that you need to take on, right? And so I think maybe even just using my situation as an example, like the decision I made that got me here. I didn't make this decision, like honestly, I'm not gonna lie, I would say maybe within the first year I had started thinking about making this decision, but I was like, you know, the self-preservation kicked in. I'm like, well, this and this and this may occur. And one of my fears really did occur. And, you know, but at the same time, even when I was talking to other people about it, and I think it's also a thing to be said about, like, you know, getting advice from other people is, you know, be very mindful of like the context that other people have, and also understanding that, like, I think for me and talking to other people about it, I think I was kind of like seeking validation for my decision, but I had really done everything I could by that point when I talked to people, you know. But I also needed to recognize that the people I was talking to a lot of the time didn't necessarily have the tools to see me and what was going on, and they weren't in the same situation as me to even really fully understand, and to them, not knowing that is like, okay, so they're all the way in step one, where I was like maybe like 9 months ago, you know, like, so it was just hard. And so the first inclination and a lot of like my advice that I got early on was like, you know, that's just kind of like how, you know, things are and situations can be, and you know, and be like, have you tried this and this and that? And it's like, I feel like I have, you know, but now I'm like, you know, maybe I did it, so let me do it again. And, you know, sure, again, when I did those things, I think I got more confirmation that, like, yes, I had done those things, and just essentially what I was seeing and what I was feeling was very much correct. And I think if I could do something differently, I think really just believing in my intuition more, and not necessarily seeking counsel for like validation, but just, okay, maybe this is how this person sees it, and just keep, if it's not like quality advice, just like seeing it as that. But yeah, like even in that advice, like it was a lot of that self-preservation of, you just have like 5 years, you only got like 4 years, you could do it. Like, I think that was first, definitely there in the first waves of advice. And it was just so interesting because like that was literally the mindset that I was like having before. I was like, oh no, like I've done a lot to try and rectify this, a lot. And it's because I really do care about this opportunity, and it doesn't show any promise of getting better, like truly better, not like a facade better, but like truly better. And so yeah, it's just, I made the decision, and yes, I had to go through a lot, like psychological, like it just it was just like a lot that happened that I had to process, and I'm still processing, honestly, and that I'll still have to process. So I'm gonna give myself some more time to process before I like apply to new programs and whatnot. But I'm just coming out at the end now. I'm just like, no, I'm just so happy I did. I feel so much more alive, so much more alive. And then that brings me to, I think, self-preservation. Sometimes I think, like there's like a societal logic that plays into that. So like, for example, like if someone said they had like $100,000 a year job offer versus like, I don't know, working as a barista, and they chose to do a barista job instead, we would look at them like they're crazy. And that's what I mean by societal logic. Like I feel like there are just certain societal values that exist that we're all aware of, and I think sometimes when we deviate between that or deviate away from that, like we're kind of like, are you okay? And I think in self-preservation, the way self-preservation within societal logic is viewed is more like why, and it's like, it doesn't matter if you have to like sacrifice like more intrinsic values, or just, it doesn't matter if you have to like sacrifice a little, like feeling a little hole in your soul, like, because if you sacrifice a little, then you can get this and this thing, maybe you can get, like your PhD, or a job with money that pays you a lot. And I think what I realized, not only through me, like, but through other people around me, is like I think a lot of the things that society says makes sense to do and says will like kind of like preserve your life and make your life better, aren't actually, like, that's not what fills everyone's cup, right? And just personally for me, like, why would I trade my humanness, why would I bargain my humanity and the integrity of my soul for anything here? Like, and especially because how can you, like, what is the goal that you're truly trying to achieve, right? Like, for me, what I'm trying to achieve, like, yes, the PhD is needed, yes, and I also need to remain myself. Like, the core of who I am needs to be there. The core, the the mechanical integrity or the spiritual integrity of my soul needs to be there. It just needs to be there. And my humanity needs to be intact. It just needs to be intact for me to achieve the thing that I want to achieve with the PhD. So it doesn't make any sense for me to trade that in for anything, because I'll never actually reach my goal. And have you ever just like, you know, like you make decisions and you just go through life and you just feel so dead even though you're alive? I feel like it's very much like aligned with that. Like, I think taking inventory with what you need and what matters to you as a human being, you know, and moving according to that is true self-preservation. You know, like that's, you face, yes, like doing that in a society that is very much against that, if it doesn't align with societal values, societal logic, it's going to be rough. It's going to be very rough. Or even if you're in a system and like your values don't align with the system, and it's rough to go against that. It's rough to choose to live in a way in which you're not compromising yourself and who you are to move ahead. It's hard in this world. It's hard in this society. And it's worth it. It's worth it because I think you really do truly live, and you really do preserve your own life doing that, because life just feels more worth living when you do that. Despite the horrible consequences that might come out of that. And just me thinking about like what I went through, like from that December period to February, like even then when I was going through it like that, I felt alive in a way where I'm like, I just had it in the past year and a half, and now that I don't really have to deal with that as much, you know, it's just, I feel good. Like I feel like my mind is clear and I can breathe easier, and it really just feels like, oh yeah, this is life, right? And so that's why it reminded me of like that Matthew 10 and 16 portion. Yeah. So in conclusion, maybe true self-preservation isn't what we have commonly understood to be self-preservation, in the sense of, you know, like, I mean, listen, we all need a place. We all need a quality place to live in, okay? Not just basic. We need quality, because if you're out here battling with mold, you know that's not, that's stressful. Like, we need basic necessities. We need a quality place to live. We need air. We need sunlight. We need a lot of things. And I don't want this to be like don't like take care of like the things you need, because sometimes we get into situations and it's like, no, I really do just, I need this right now, and I don't want this to be like a put down on that. And I want this to be like maybe do the thing that feels scary and just listen to what that fear is telling you that might happen, and try to prepare for that as fast. But I would say, don't let your fear get in the way of doing actions that meet that leads you to the life that you would like to lead. I said leave. Lead. Yeah, like, don't let fear hold you back from making the decisions that your body is screaming at you to make. because it's screaming at you to make them for a reason, I think. And again, within reason, guys, don't go out there doing anything crazy. And then use this as don't. Like, please, you know, like if you're just feeling like, oh, I'm in this situation, I'm at this job, you know, or like this program or something, and it's just something feels like it's eating away at my life force. It's eating away at my soul. You know, maybe just take some time to reflect and be like, well, what is it? Like, is there anything that I can do to not feel like this is eating my life force and still stay here? If not, like, are there any other places that I can still get my needs met that I get through this job, where I don't have to feel this way, you know? So yeah, maybe the true self-preservation happens when you really just tune into yourself and understand what it is that you need to live a fuller life, and not necessarily what society and everyone else wants, you know, for you, because we all have our different values and we all have different lives that we want to live. So yeah, bye.